hard because I
slid right in.
I thought I should have the job before Martin had.
Ah, there we go.
So it was, to me, I was like, Martin's not a...
That don't make me laugh. Your boy is supposed to help you get in that training program 2 years ago. Look at you, man. You ain't nothing but a late-in-the-house drink.
That's some iodine in the lab.
Hey, man, I don't need nothing from no house of dead folks, okay? Besides, I ain't no baby.
Of course you're not.
Excuse me. I'm the president of the All That Club, and I'm here to tell you that you are all that. Chris Law. My brother was Kenny.
Yeah, I remember. How you doing?
Not so good. My mother got this yesterday.
By motherfucker with your happy ass, I need my ass.
Hey, get out my face,
Okay,
man.
hey, what's the problem here? I'm the owner of this restaurant. Can I help you?
Pretty boy. You the owner.
Yeah, I'm the owner.
Personally, I wouldn't with nothing that's gonna turn my another color. They go to the beach where we want some rains. Pour all that lotion and shit back. I wanna get darker. Dude.
I'm not gonna do
I
nothing.
ain't in this.
I'm not gonna
Quit
do
playing.
nothing
I
to
ain't.
you.
Stop. Don't stop. Damn, give me that.
Before there was Def Comedy Jam, before the cult films, before the near-death moments and Hollywood politics, there was just Joe Torry, born September 28, 1965 in St. Louis, Missouri. Fourth of 6 siblings, raised in a loud, sharp, working-class black household where the frying pan never cooled down and neither did the comebacks. His mother, Rebecca, was a teacher. Not the kind who softened her voice, the kind who corrected your grammar mid-sentence and reminded you were smart even when you weren't acting like it. His father, Robert, came home from Vietnam, carrying things he never talked about: quiet rage, unspoken pain, strict order. Joe learned from both. In that household, humor wasn't cute, it was armor. The only way to avoid a beatdown from an older sibling or break the tension after a tough day. Jokes kept things moving. Jokes made you safe. And Joe was quick. Not just class clown quick, survivor quick. He could disarm with one line and disappear before the second. He understood rhythm, reaction, the science of funny. Before he studied the greats, he was living the formula every day, building timing in the most unforgiving audience imaginable, his home. St. Louis wasn't easy, but Joe wasn't fragile. He learned to walk the line between charming and dangerous, the guy who could light up a room and check you if you crossed the line. He had a presence. Even teachers noticed. Even strangers leaned in. You don't come from where Joe came from and survive on soft words. You survive by being louder, faster, sharper, and realer. And from the very beginning, Joe Torry was all for. Funny wasn't a hobby, it was instinct. It wasn't about laughs, it was about staying sane and staying seen. Joe didn't just survive the streets, he leveled up from them. In the 1980s, he enrolled at Lincoln University, an HBCU with deep roots in excellence, activism, and legacy. Joe didn't just blend in, he carved a lane. Studying mass communications and broadcast journalism, he was drawn to storytelling, rhythm, and the power of voice. He realized his words could travel further than any punchline. This wasn't just about a degree, it was about identity, intention, impact. At Lincoln, Joe didn't just find professors, he found a purpose. He studied how the media works, how messages move people, how culture is built, one story at a time. It gave his raw humor a blueprint, structure, clarity, timing, and weight. It taught him that words could shift rooms, shift minds, shift history, that every sentence, when rooted in truth, could ripple through a crowd like thunder. But his real education? That came through Omega Psi. Pledging this legendary black fraternity wasn't about status, it was about values, brotherhood, discipline, accountability, service. You don't join Omega to coast, you join to lead, to fight for something bigger than yourself, to uplift your people. That mindset echoed through Joe's life, from his stand-up sets to his youth work in St. Louis. He wasn't chasing fame, he was crafting legacy. Lincoln was where the kid with sharp jokes became a man with sharper purpose, where his comedy found depth, where his leadership voice matured, where he first realized he didn't just want to be funny, he wanted to be transformational. He wanted to make people feel something real. Joe Torry didn't leave Lincoln with just a diploma. He left with direction, a tribe, a mission, and a fire that would light every mic he ever touched. In the late 80s, you could catch him in blink and miss roles on shows like ER, NYPD Blue, NCIS, Barely a Line, maybe a punch, maybe a punchline. But every gig was a gem. Every line was a lesson. He was learning how to command space, flip a dead script, and bring heat when all you got was 10 seconds on camera. And off stage, Joe was studying like a scientist. He worshipped the greats, Sammy Davis Jr., Abbott and Costello, Dick Van Dyke, not just for the laughs, but for the math behind the funny, the structure, the speed, the silence between the lines. He broke them down like game tape, then rebuilt it all in his own raw, street-smart cadence, blending classic timing with real-world grit and honesty. His stand-up, it hit different. No fluff, no filter, just truth, wrapped in rhythm and rooted in pain, power, and punchlines. He was funny, yes, but he was also fearless. He talked about real things, raw things. He made you laugh at them without feeling guilty, and without forgetting the truth underneath the jokes. By the early 1990s, he was more than ready, and HBO noticed. In 1992, Joe was tapped to replace Martin Lawrence as host of Def Comedy Jam. That wasn't just a gig, it was a trial by fire. One mic, one stage, one shot to lead the next wave of black comedy on national TV. And Joe delivered. He didn't just host, he commanded. He didn't just entertain, he disrupted. Joe Torry didn't inherit a throne, he earned it with every punchline that cut deep. With Def Comedy Jam buzzing, Hollywood came knocking, and Joe Torry kicked the door clean off the hinges. He wasn't just a comedian anymore, he was a presence. Directors saw it immediately, that fearless delivery, that streetwise wit, that ability to control a room without raising his voice. They realized if Joe could rock a live audience, he could own the camera too, and he did. In 1993, he turned heads in the cult horror anthology Tales from the Hood, playing a role that let him tap into both comedy and eerie tension. Audiences didn't just laugh, they leaned in. That same year, he brought the laughs in Sprung, a romantic comedy that showed off his timing, confidence, and charisma as a true leading man. He gave it that Joe Torry edge, slick, unpredictable, soulful. But Joe wasn't boxed in by laughter, he could flip it.
In Dangerous Minds, opposite Michelle Pfeiffer, Joe brought rawness and empathy to a story about troubled students and the power of second chances. He didn't just land his scenes, he added weight. That's what he did best. Whether he was the lead or 3 lines deep, Joe made moments count. TV? He crushed it there too. Shows like The Shield, The Parkers, and NYPD Blue proved his range. Funny, fierce, flawed, or even tragic. The man could switch gears mid-sentence. But here's the thing, Joe never softened to fit the mold. He brought the same edge, truth, and fire to every role. Even when he played the sidekick, he stole scenes. He didn't fade into Hollywood, he pressed into it. He didn't chase blockbusters, he chased impact. Because real talent doesn't wait for the spotlight, it creates one. And Joe lit it up. Joe Torry didn't crash out, he walked out, head high, shoulders back, fully in control. No scandals, no meltdowns, no tell-all headlines, just a quiet step back from the peak of the spotlight to the real world behind it. And in an industry where falling off is entertainment, Joe did the rarest thing. He left intentionally. The truth, Joe was done fighting upstream. Hollywood tried to box him in, loud, lovable, one-dimensional, the funny friend, never the full man. But Joe had layers. He wasn't just punchlines, he was politics, poetry, pain, and perspective. Too edgy to play safe, too smart to play dumb, too soulful to play a character of himself. There was politics, there were whispers, there were rooms he wasn't invited into, not because he couldn't deliver, but because he refused to shrink. And Joe, he never played small. After Def Comedy Jam, the transition was rough. Some fans missed Martin Lawrence's animation, some execs wanted him toned down, but Joe stayed Joe, even when it cost him jobs, coverage, and attention. So he pivoted. He married, built a family, became a present father, a mentor, a pillar. He poured into his kids, his city, and his craft without needing headlines or red carpets. Because fame was fleeting, but impact, that could last forever. And still, he never left.
He kept performing, writing, producing, guiding, evolving. The stages were smaller maybe, but the message was bigger. The spotlight dimmed, but the work deepened. Because some stars burn bright and fade, Joe, he burned steadily. He chose legacy over limelight, depth over drama. And in the long run, that's what made him legendary. Joe Torry didn't fall off. He stood up and stepped back on his own terms. In the spotlight, Joe Torry looked untouchable, but life had a way of reminding him fame doesn't bulletproof your reality. One night in the early 2000s, Joe was riding through LA with Christopher, Kid Reed from Kid and Play. Music up, windows down, good vibes. Then, out of nowhere, chaos. A car pulled up, gunshots rang out, 7 bullets tore through the vehicle, windows shattered, metal screamed. Joe caught one in the arm. Wrong car, wrong time, mistaken identity, but it didn't feel like a mistake. Because that moment forced Joe to face a hard truth. Because when death knocks and you answer the door still breathing, you don't waste time. You double down on what matters. Joe Torry wasn't just lucky to survive. He was chosen to live with purpose and pour that into others. After the bullets, the spotlights, and the battles, Joe chose balance. He wasn't done entertaining, not by a long shot. But now, the mission was bigger than laughs. It was about legacy, about roots, about building something that lasted. In 2001, he married Crystal Benson, building a blended family and stepping into fatherhood with the same intensity he once brought to stages. He wasn't just at the event, he was in the trenches. Homework, coaching, real conversations, discipline, hugs, presence. Because being a dad wasn't about showing up, it was about showing up every day. But Joe's hustle never stopped. It just shifted. He founded Mo Films, a production company aimed at uplifting new voices, especially from the Midwest, his home turf. Tired of Hollywood ignoring talent outside LA and New York, Joe put his money where his mouth was. He created space, told stories, gave others the break he had to fight for. It wasn't just about films, it was about freedom to create on his own terms. He also launched the Giving Back the Love Foundation, aimed at supporting at-risk youth in St. Louis. School supplies, mentorship, life guidance, events that brought the city together. The kind of real-world help that changes outcomes, not just headlines. And still, he performed, still filmed, still stayed sharp. From indie comedies like The Workout Room to national campaigns with Pepsi, Nike, and Budweiser, Joe kept showing up. His face is familiar. His voice is steady. His message is always clear. Some called it a second act, but Joe would tell you it was the main event. Because comedy was the door, but community, that was the house he built. Joe Torry wasn't fading. He was planning. As of 2025, his estimated net worth is just over $1 million, earned through decades of stand-up, acting, directing, producing, and smart business decisions. He's not chasing viral fame or Hollywood validation. He's chasing value, impact, and ownership. One of his most recent wins? The indie film The Workout Room, a passion project he produced, directed, and starred in. It didn't dominate box offices, but it crushed online, built a cult following, and proved that Joe still knows how to move the culture on his own terms. He's also stepped into mentorship mode, directing up-and-coming talent, guiding young comics, and dropping real game about navigating the entertainment industry without selling your soul. Because Joe remembers when the door was barely cracked open for guys like him, and now he's holding it open wider. And that old-school fire? Still there. Whether he's rocking a comedy stage, speaking at an HBCU, or just dropping late-night wisdom on IG Live, Joe's voice is seasoned, grounded, respected. But maybe his biggest win? Longevity. In life, in love, in purpose. He's still with Crystal, still active in his Giving Back the Love Foundation, and still riding for St. Louis. He never forgot where he came from, and he never let where he went change who he was. Joe Torry didn't peak and vanish. He evolved and chose his lane. And in a world obsessed with fast fame,
He's living proof that slow, steady, and real wins the race. Joe Torry is more than a name. He's a blueprint. Behind the jokes, the movies, and the mic, Joe Torry had a compass, and it always pointed toward purpose. He wasn't just trying to be funny, he was trying to say something. Comedy wasn't an escape, it was a mirror, a truth serum, a way to challenge people, not just charm them. And for Joe, if the laughs didn't come with meaning, they weren't worth the punchline. That's how he saw it. That's what made him different. He believed in speaking on what mattered, on poverty, on racism, on politics, on broken systems. And he did it with a grin, a raised eyebrow, and a rhythm that made it hit harder. He knew the joke would land, but he made sure the truth landed too. That's why some rooms tried to sideline him, but that's also why he stood out. Joe was rooted in faith, not the loud performative kind, the daily kind. Quiet strength, steady patience, a belief that God didn't bring him through poverty, through violence, through rejection, through Hollywood chaos, just to play it safe. He was here to serve something bigger, and he believed in people, in the power of community, in mentoring young comics, in hugging it out with kids who never had a father figure, in telling the truth, even when it didn't trend. He wasn't chasing applause, he was feeding souls, and that meant more. To Joe, success wasn't followers, it was followers becoming leaders. That's what he lived for. And even if the industry didn't always get him, the people did, because real ones recognize real ones. Joe Torry didn't just use his platform, he honored it. Every stage, every mic, every moment. He believed in laughter, but even more, he believed in legacy. In an industry that rewards flash over foundation, Joe Torry proved that staying true is the most radical move of all. He came up when the gatekeepers ran the game, when black comics had to squeeze into tight boxes just to get a seat at the table. But Joe didn't squeeze, he built his own lane. Raw, honest, smart, soulful, and always real. He didn't burn out, he didn't sell out, he didn't fade out. He simply kept going on his terms. Through the laughs, the drama, the near-death moments, and the hard pivots, Joe stayed rooted in three things: his family, his faith, and his why. That's what guided him. That's what grounded him. That's what made his comedy land deeper, his community work hit harder, and his legacy last longer. He wasn't chasing celebrity. He was chasing change in himself and others in the system. His work wasn't just art. It was activism. His laughs carried weight. His roles carried messages. And while some comedians are remembered for one role or one moment, Joe Torry's legacy is layered. He opened the doors, built bridges, mentored the next generation, took the hit, then handed others the mic. Not for credit, but because that's what real ones do. So if you're out here trying to build something that lasts, if you're trying to make it without losing yourself, if you're tired of the fake and hungry for the real, look at Joe Torry. Because he didn't just survive the game, he remixed it, and he did it with laughs, love, faith, and purpose every step of the way. Joe Torry isn't just a success story. He's the blueprint for how to win and still stay whole.